Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm Jeff Pender. Hope you enjoy this podcast. Please like and subscribe, do all that good stuff. Joined here today with my colleague Devna Bose, our education writer and helping the politics team try and keep the legislature in check this year. Yep. Devna, how are you doing?
I'm good as I can be at this point in the session.
We're getting down to the short rows of the session, hopefully, and we have a special guest today. He's been on this show before, this podcast before. We have Senator David Blount. He is chairman of the gaming committee in the Senate. Been in the Senate, I believe, since 2008. Correct?
That's right.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Happy
Really
to be
appreciate
here.
it.
Thanks for having me.
And you're involved in most everything going on at the Capitol.
Not everything I want to be involved in.
Well, maybe not. Maybe some stuff you don't want to be involved in, but appreciate you giving us an update, and we may cover a good bit of ground here if that's okay. But
that's fine.
As we just mentioned, we're down to the budget setting time and kind of the final week and a half, 2 weeks of the session. Your take, where do things stand? How are they going overall?
Well, we hope that we'll be done in about 2 weeks. Last year we finished with no budget. Last year we finished with no money for either state or local buildings or infrastructure. We finished with passing what I think is the worst bill that any of us will ever see in the legislature, which was a bill to eliminate the income tax and to end a real pension through the retirement system for new employees. And you're seeing the repercussions of both of those issues in this session. But if we can finish on time in 2 weeks and we can have a budget and we can fully fund education, pass a teacher pay raise, do a little bit of money for infrastructure, I think that's something every member of the legislature can support and go back home, and it'll be a better session.
Okay. Well, hopefully, what's your feeling at this point, how things are progressing towards those goals?
Well, I'm not in the inner circle, but I am optimistic. I think that as I said, it's in everybody's interest. Last year, to finish with no budget and to finish without any money for infrastructure and no teacher pay raise, at some point the people in charge are responsible for what happens. And I think the people in charge recognize that, and they know that to finish a session without a budget 2 years in a row, without doing some of these things that their constituents, whether they be Republican or Democrat,
right,
want to see, then they'll be held accountable. And for that reason, I think they're going to get it done.
Dave, we've been hearing that they're making progress. Of course, you always hear that this time of year, but hopefully
That's right.
That is the case. And this session, you've been the tip of the spear for us, covering a lot of education issues. Senator Blount, I know that's one area you've always been keenly focused on. We've, I guess, at this point, seen a lot of stuff die on the education policy front.
I think there are 6 education bills still alive.
Out of, at one point, dozens
and dozens, yeah.
School choice was the big hairy issue going into it. That appears to be dead for now. But
And I'll just say quickly on that, the Senate Education Committee, which is made up of 10 Republicans and 5 Democrats. The chairman is a conservative Republican, one of the first state senators to endorse Donald Trump for president, voted on the school choice bill. And there was a motion to pass the bill, and there was not a single vote on that committee to pass that bill. And so the bill did not pass. That was the issue that did dominate the first month or so of the session. I think some time has passed on that, and we're now working on, again, the basics, funding a formula, hopefully coming together on a teacher pay raise bill. There are some other technical issues that I think we can build on the success we've had with reading in the state. So staying in the middle of the road and doing the popular things and the things that are proven to work, that's a success.
But we're not completely away from the school choice debate or school choice policy. We saw this week the Children's Promise Act taken up on the floor.
That's right.
I know you offered an amendment. Can you talk a little bit about what your amendment would have done and kind of how you feel about how things played out this
Well,
week?
and what the act is.
Right, sure.
Sure. For the people who don't know, there's an act that's named the Children's Promise Act, and what that law says is if you're a taxpayer in the state, you can choose to essentially give your tax money to a private school instead of paying taxes to the state of Mississippi. I mean, it just is nuts to me, but that's what it says. There's currently a cap of about $20 million a year that people, instead of paying $20 million in taxes to the state, which funds primarily education and all the other services the state provides, they can pay it directly to their private school. And there's very little accountability or oversight or transparency about what that money is used for. I think it's a bad program. I think it should be repealed. And so it diminishes the state budget and just sends money without accountability to private schools. That's what it does. There was a bill in the Senate this year dealing with that. The House leadership is trying to expand that program. I think that's a bad idea. The Senate proposal would have directed money to what are called special purpose schools. And these are schools that are not traditional private schools, but they are certified by the State Department of Education to deal with very specific disabilities where the children are there because they have a specific disability, and the instruction and teachers there are completely tailored around those students to meet their needs. I think that's a good thing. These are not traditional public schools, but they're not traditional private schools either. They're special purpose schools. I don't think it's a good idea to let people choose to pay their taxes to whoever they want to pay it to, but I do think it's a good idea for the state to support these schools. So, but the bill that came out of the Senate does do that, but it does not end the component of the program that sends taxpayer money directly to private schools, which again has very little accountability. So that bill is still alive. Again, I think it should be either killed or greatly amended, and that's what I tried to do this year. But
you had an amendment on the
amendment
floor
this week.
that appeared to have a little traction.
The amendment I did, and the amendment failed by a vote of 24 to 26. There are more than 24 Democrats in the Senate, so there are Republicans over there who agree with that. But that bill is still alive and will probably come back in the next week or two.
I really thought the point that you made on the floor was interesting and not one that I had thought of, that by allocating this separate pot of money to special purpose schools, the proposal actually this year increases the amount available to private schools. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's a fixed dollar amount for how much money the private schools can accept under this law. And that pot of money is available to private schools, but also to the special purpose schools, which I just described. And if you essentially set up another pot that is dedicated strictly to those special purpose schools, again, I don't have a problem with the state supporting them. It's not the way I would do it, but I don't have a problem with the state supporting them. But if you no longer have those two types of schools competing for the same money in a same fixed amount, then the result of that is that the private schools are going to get more money because they have a pot reserved specifically for them. And I just don't think that's what we should do.
As I mentioned, we may shift gears, cover a lot of ground here today. But another big issue, and I know one that you paid close attention to and been involved in before, is the public employees retirement system. Last year, it to me was kind of by accident, kind of like the tax bill you mentioned, but major sea change to the retirement policy that you just referenced. Heard a lot of blowback from teachers, law enforcement, people concerned that this reduction in benefits, change in benefits, is going to make it harder to recruit state workers, particularly teachers and law enforcement. Some efforts have been afoot to undo that. or revisit some of that this year. Where do things stand with that right now?
Well, last year the legislature, and this was led by Republican leadership in the Senate, pushed to essentially end a real pension system, which has been in place since the retirement system was started, which covers state employees, city employees, county employees, school teachers, college employees, to move to a hybrid style system. I think it's the worst thing that the legislature has done in a generation, and it's something that if it's not fixed now is going to affect people literally in 60 or 70 years. That there's going to be a young woman who graduates from college in May and starts teaching this fall, and in 60 years she's going to be 82 years old, and she's going to have a pretty sorry retirement because of that bill. The Republican leadership in the House voted for that because I think they were fixated on eliminating the income tax, and the governor signed the bill into law, and that's what we've got. And there was not enough. If we saw the opposition last year that we are hearing now, that bill would not have passed.
Yeah.
But it did pass, and now people are beginning to realize what it does. We do need to make changes to the retirement system, and I've offered amendments both this year and last year to do that. But we can preserve a real pension system. We can preserve a real pension system, and not this system, which effectively it is documented that the retiree is going to be worse off, and that's if they are able to independently manage and deal with a private account for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, you said a hybrid system. It's going to be a hybrid of a small portion of a defined benefit pension plan.
That's right, with no guaranteed cost of living adjustment,
Right.
and then an investment account, which is designed to be portable, which means you can leave with it. And if you go and talk to anybody, whether it's at the sheriff's office or at the school superintendent's office, but also a lot of these jobs that you often don't hear talked about, people who work in prisons, people who work in mental health facilities, people who work on the side of the road and cut the grass, they have a pension under the old system. And if they're hired after March the 1st of this year, they will really not. And we need to, in my opinion, we need to repeal Tier 5. Now, the Senate has put forward kind of individual bills to deal with components of them. All of them, I think, make the system better than it is now. I don't think they go far enough. Again, I think we need to repeal Tier 5 and replace it, and I've got a proposal to do that. But all this is still in play. But I would just say, if you or somebody in your family is concerned about this or opposed to the current situation, you need to hold people accountable who voted for it, because there are some of us who opposed it and are trying to change it. Now the Senate, again, and the House too, to be fair, have passed some bills that would make some changes. I think we definitely need to look at those. The strength of the system to me is everybody's in the same system. But if you talk to all these people who hire firefighters, teachers, state workers, county workers, they all will tell you the same thing. We cannot pay you enough money. You're never going to get rich working here, but you're going to have quality health insurance, and you're going to have a real retirement. And so when a person is in a job like that, whether it's teaching or whatever it is, and he or she has worked there for 8, 10, 12 years, and they think, look, I'm not making any money. I need to go do something else. They stay because they have a retirement system. They don't have a portable retirement system that they go leave and take somewhere else. They stay for a real retirement system because they've been putting into that. They've been putting in 9% of their paycheck every single month, and they stay for a real retirement system. So the workforce consequences of this Tier 5 plan that was pushed by the Republicans and signed into law by the Republicans is going to be devastating long term, not only for the retiree, but for all these public employers who need to hire and keep people.
This has an impact on Mississippi's economy, correct? I mean, we're talking
that's
hundreds of thousands of people plus families.
And so there, in addition to, and that's exactly right. In addition to this, there is an economic argument that to have, when people have a large number of people have a stable retirement, that is a stabilizing effect on the economy of the state as a whole. And if they take their money out of the system, if they don't have that stable retirement system, their economic situation is going to be worse. And that's not just worse for that individual, because there's so many of these folks, it's going to be worse for the state as a whole.
Senator, what about the argument on the other side that the system had billions of dollars in unfunded liability, that it was a catastrophe waiting to happen down the road, that it needed to be shored up, and hence these changes?
We did need to make changes, and I'm not here saying that nothing needed to be changed.
Sure.
We did need to make changes. I've been appointed one of two senators on the PERS board for the last 6 years. I am not suggesting that we did not need to make changes. What we could have done, and what my amendment would have done, is reduced, not eliminated, but reduced the cost of living adjustment for new hires. Because that cost of living adjustment, or COLA, sometimes called the 13th check, is a guaranteed 3%. And for more than a decade after the 2008 financial crisis, we didn't see 3% inflation every year. Sometimes it was 1%, or sometimes less than 2%. So you could have maintained a smaller COLA.
Tie it to the
Either tie it to
CPI.
or cap it at 1%, which would still have a pension, still have a cost of living component, and you would protect that retirees' benefits in what I'll consider to be a real pension and not some kind of hybrid type model, and also be financially responsible.
Can we expect to see that proposal again at any point before everybody goes home in a few weeks? Or
I don't have the opportunity anymore where we are in a session to offer the amendment on the floor that I did earlier this session, but there are different proposals that are alive. And again, some of them are good things. Senator Sparks on our side has been working on that. I don't think they go far enough. Again, I'm against this hybrid thing, but I think they are going to help our employers. So I'm hoping it's not everything I'd like to see, but we still need to get them done.
I noticed the law enforcement lobby is pretty stout this year. I think I've seen more law enforcement and firefighters than I have in a while there.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad they're here. I understand they're and agree with their concerns. I'm a little frustrated. If they had been here this time last year, this wouldn't have happened. Right. This would not have happened. But they are here. I'm glad they're here, and we need to make some of these changes.
Moving on, one perhaps final topic, unless there's other stuff you'd like to cover. But as chairman of the gaming committee, one major topic of debate now for at least 2 or 3 years is online sports betting. Yep. The House has pushed that very strongly. Speaker White has made it clear that's one of his top issues. It has not been well met in the Senate, and I believe I heard the lieutenant governor opine this week that there's just not votes for it in the Senate. Tell us your thoughts on the proposal to legalize online sports betting in Mississippi.
Well, when I ran for office the first time, I didn't know that I was going to be chairman of the gaming committee and dealing with gambling and casino issues in the state. But look, this is an important industry in our state.
Sure.
And they employ tens of thousands of people who go to work and support their families. And so my take on the industry as a whole is we have legalized gaming in Mississippi to create jobs, to encourage tourism, to promote investment in the state, because again, it's a major economic impact, and a lot of people support their families in this business. Mobile sports betting doesn't do any of that. Doesn't create any jobs. There's no investment. It's just people want to gamble on their phones, and the only rationale that I have heard is that there are some people doing it now, and so we need to tax and get the money. The most recent bill from the House, I think in an effort to get some of the casinos who have opposed this, and half of the ownership groups within the casino industry have been opposed to this from the very beginning.
Right.
And they believe that it's a detriment to their business, and that they've invested money here and they hire people here, and they believe that this is a step toward not just betting on games on your phone. And you see this in other states where people play poker on their phone, they play blackjack on their phone, they buy lottery tickets on their phone, and that there is a nationwide effort to just do all this stuff on your phone. And there's social cost to this. But the most recent bill that came from the House, in an effort to solicit casino support, included a 25% casino tax cut. The current state rate on casinos is 8%. The bill that passed the House would lower that to 6%. The cost of that to the state budget is about $50 million. The estimate, anybody who listens to this can look it up online, go to the Tax Foundation, which is a source that's often cited at the Capitol. It's a conservative-leaning site, and they project that based on the tax rate in that House bill, that Mississippi will net, around $32 million a year. So the bill as a whole would cut taxes by $50 million to get $32 million, and that just doesn't make.
And also probably drastically cut casino revenue potentially as well.
There are some casinos who would say that. There are others who would disagree with that. There's some of the larger casinos do support this because they're tied into the national apps that you see every time you watch a ball game, and it's just it's impossible to watch sports now without being deluged with all this. But there are casinos who do support it because they're tied in with these apps that you see on TV. But the net effect on the state budget of this most recent bill, it doesn't raise any money. It doesn't raise any money. So that's one problem. And of course, the other problem, and this is new this year, is the current administration in Washington has effectively legalized nationwide mobile gambling on anything and everything. And this is what's called prediction markets. Polymarket, Kalshi is one, another one. And if anyone can Google these companies and find out the names of people and family members of people you've heard of who are involved in these companies. And the current administration has essentially made this legal nationwide. And they're in court all over the country, in every state in the country. But right now, at least the law today is you can bet on not only the football game or the basketball game, you can bet on literally when the United States is going to bomb Iran.
Right.
You can bet on when Taylor Swift's going to have a baby. You can bet on, it's a disaster. And you've got a renegade federal agency called the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, which was set up 100 years ago to regulate soybean futures and ag futures. And they now have legalized effectively mobile gambling nationwide without any vote of Congress or with the opposition of all 50 states. And it's just wide open. So all that is to say that because of that, these products cannot be regulated or taxed by the state. So however much money you were promising last year would be generated by mobile sports betting, these companies are losing market share to these prediction markets because they're not taxed. And they can offer more bets. You can bet on who's going to win the Oscars, all these other topics. So it's not, in my opinion, because there is no financial benefit to the most recent House bill and because there are increasing concerns about social cost, and there have been long-time concerns by businesses and employers in the state. In my opinion, and the opinion of the Senate as a whole, not just my opinion, it's not something we need to do.
And from what you said and the Lieutenant Governor, we can probably mark that one dead for this session.
I don't think there's a vehicle alive under the deadlines that could bring that back this year.
Okay. Well, appreciate all the updates. We've covered a lot of ground here. Speaking of predictions, you got a over under on when y'all wrap up.
Well, look, the last year we left without a budget.
Right.
We left without any money for infrastructure projects. And if you do that 2 years in a row, people will begin to think that you're not really capable of doing the job. And I don't think that's the case. I think both sides want to show that they are capable of doing the job, and they want to pass a budget, and they want to pass a teacher pay raise bill, and they want to do some of these projects. I think everybody wants to do that. I think it's in everybody's interest to do that, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay. Well, we will be seeing here shortly, and would like to at some point here soon maybe get you back for an update or a postmortem or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I hope I've come back in 3 weeks. So I hope I'm right about what my prediction. But
I do too.
Otherwise, I'll just come on here and we'll talk about baseball or something.
or talk about the pending special session. Anyway, well, thank you again for coming on.
I'm glad to be with you. Thank you.